So for a majority of my life, I haven't been necessarily the fittest kid ever. And I remember a time where I was in PE class and I really wanted to run a fast mile time because that was kind of like this like the symbolizer of status back in like 7th or 8th grade. It was, what was your mile time and how many pacers could you run? At least to me, that was like if you were a cool kid or not, is like if you could run a ton of pacers back and forth, or if you could run a mile, pretty fast, like 7 minutes or something. Oh my gosh. Just thinking about that, like I definitely didn't wasn't the fittest kid back in the day. I remember I ran probably like a 9:30-ish mile was like a good time for me. I was like, yeah, like I PR'd, bro. And I was terrible at the pacer, like the bleep test, like the beep, 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 like that one where you like run and it's like the fitness grand pacer test. I remember doing that quite a lot and just being absolutely gassed out. Safe to say I wasn't like the fittest kid back whenever I was younger. I'm a little bit fitter now, I would say, just a little bit. Like my mile time is a lot better. My I can run pretty fast. I think I got up to like 100 something pacers at some point. It was pretty good. I've gotten pretty fit since that point. And I just remember the food that I ate back whenever I was younger as well. It kind of correlated with how fit I generally was, and how fit I am now, I think does have like there's a role that food has to play in the fitness that I have now. I don't think it's everything because I think training overall has a bigger responsibility for how fit you are because like two people could eat, pretty like clean diets and whatnot, like high protein, whatever, like no junk food. But if one person trains and the other doesn't, like the person who trained is going to be more fit. Like it's just that's just how it works. Let's be honest. Like if you train, you're probably going to be more fit. And so I generally think like training has a bigger impact than diet does, but I think diet there's still significance there. And so I think the biggest thing is kind of the junk food factor because whenever I was younger, I I ate I wouldn't say a ton of junk food, but I ate a decent amount whenever I was younger. And so I would have, dessert basically every night. I would have candy bars a lot of the time. I would have school lunch, which is one of the most like toxic things that you can give to a child. School lunches and breakfasts, terrible. I would have those and just a ton of like other processed stuff that might have been considered as healthy, but it was still ultra processed food. And yeah, it's like, of course, I wasn't as fit as the other kids. Like, one, I don't think I necessarily have the best genetics for being like in shape and jacked and whatever, and like a good athlete. But it's like I also was eating like not great food, and so even though some of the other kids were probably eating the same sort of food, like their genetics kind of like protected them from that. And if you're anything like me, like maybe you don't have necessarily the best genetics or whatever, and so you're a little bit more susceptible to a poor diet like I am. Like if I eat poorly, I feel it. And there's some kids that are my age, some guys my age who they eat like fried chicken all of the time and they just like they're freaking yoked. So, like they just are more in shape. And so, diet does have some level of play there. And it's like if you're a little bit more susceptible to a lesser diet like I am, then eating to get more in shape, eating to get like jacked, eating to get fitter is actually really important. And so that's why I'm making this video, is just sharing how I'm eating to become a more fit human being. Because like I said, even though training has probably a higher role to play, I think diet does still have significance, especially if you aren't like elite genetics or whatever. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. And so the biggest theme that I want to share with you, though, overall, is just to experiment. Like, don't get caught in a singular way of eating. I would say try out and see what works for you. And even then, still keep trying some new things here and there, but just be kind of slow about it. If you found something that really works for you, then like, okay. But if you haven't, then keep experimenting and see eventually what does work for you. And so that's really kind of the baseline of what I want to give advice to, because that's one of the biggest things that have allowed me to eat in a way that has gotten me to get more in shape, if that makes sense, is by experimentation, by not necessarily following what everyone else is recommending, and just trying out something that I thought might work. And that's what I've landed on, and that's what I'm going to share with you. And so, how I'm eating to get faster, to get fitter and leaner, etc., like better in shape. The first thing is kind of sort of intermittent fasting. And so, I haven't done this today. I didn't do this yesterday. But for most days and in general, I'll kind of like shorten the amount of time that I'm eating. So today I'll probably, like, I ate around like 8 o'clock or so, and it's like 9:30 now, but I'm probably going to eat again around 2, which is kind of like a big intermittent fasting window, but I'm limiting the amount of time that I eat to just kind of like breakfast or lunch and dinner. This is essentially how I like to go about it, is having just kind of like 2-ish big meals throughout the day. I'm experimenting with this. It's kind of like iffy on if I actually like it or not, and it's kind of meh, but I found that in the past, whenever I have done it, where I've had maybe 1 big meal throughout the day, or maybe 2 in like a shorter time window, I generally have better workouts. I feel pretty good. Energy is pretty good. I feel kind of leaner at the end of the day, because I generally eat less food. And it also helps with kind of that self-discipline of like, okay, I'm skipping breakfast. I didn't do that this morning, but I think for the days that I have done it, I felt kind of more disciplined. Like, yeah, like discipline. I didn't skip breakfast, dude. Like, I'm locked in. And yeah, so it's something that I would recommend someone trying out if you can stand it. I think it's something that I'm personally trying to work through on, if like I kind of want to battle that feeling of hunger and whatnot. I'm still trying to work through that, and kind of like the muscle protein synthesis and whatnot. I'm just kind of like weighing both options right now, and I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm leaning more on the side of doing the intermittent fasting, just because you just end up eating less throughout the day. And so if you want to get leaner, like restricting the amount of time that you have to eat makes it really easy to eat less food. So yeah, the next thing that I have written down, the next thing I'm doing is I'm not eating any carbohydrates whatsoever. And so this can be kind of controversial, because a lot of people like to eat carbohydrates. A lot of people think you need carbohydrates. But from what I have learned that about like energy, metabolism, and just food in general, and through my own self-experimentation, which I was talking about earlier, is that I actually feel a lot better without carbohydrates than I do with carbohydrates. And a couple reasons for that is because, one, it's super easy to not overeat just fat and protein. Like, I eat basically just meat and eggs, and it's super hard to overeat those things. Like, I'll get full, And just eating more is kind of like, ugh, ugh. I don't want to eat more. It's just kind of like, ugh. And like it's very hard to rapidly gain a ton of weight whenever you're eating like just whole real food without carbohydrates. It makes it so easy, in my opinion, to not overeat, to not get fat, and my energy is also just like rock solid throughout the day because I don't have like these like sugar highs and these crashes afterwards. That's what I experienced on carbs, and maybe it's different for you, but I've just found like unless I'm eating like a crap ton of carbs consistently throughout the day to where my energy's like consistently elevated, like it's just like an up and down crash. Like I never got to eating like a huge amount of carbs throughout the day, and honestly like that would just be kind of like disgusting for me. And so like just eating fat and protein, it has allowed me to just kind of like stay pretty even throughout the day. And yes, it can be lower if I get like a bad night of sleep or I work out really hard or whatever. Like yeah, I'm gonna get tired. As like I'm not invincible to energy like lows, right? It's generally a little bit more steady. Even if the highs aren't as high, but it means the lows aren't as low either, which I really enjoy. But yeah, don't eat any carbohydrates, and I might reintroduce them eventually, but I'm sticking to my low carb, no carb for a full year. So in like 4 months, I might try them again. We'll see. And I kind of mentioned this, but I basically just eat meat and eggs, so just full on carnivore. It's like just fat and protein. I get plenty of protein to build muscle, which I think is a huge factor for just getting fitter, losing fat, just staying in shape. Protein's kind of like essential from everyone that like every single source that I listen to. Protein is like the essential thing. So like regardless of who you listen to, protein is like absolutely essential. And so I get that, and the fat is just my energy basically. And I like it. I like it for fitness. I don't like whenever I was eating a ton of like vegetables and plants, I would always feel kind of like bloated and sick, and like I get a lot of stomach discomfort. And I found that for me on carnivore, personally, I feel like a better athlete whenever I don't have like that weird like stomach discomfort. It's a lot easier to be fasted. I was talking about that earlier with the intermittent fasting. Whenever you don't have any carbs, I found that it actually becomes a lot easier to forget about food, and that's pretty cool. I like that fact about it. Obviously, sometimes I'll still have breakfast and whatnot, but like it's pretty easy to like fast after a certain point, and like you don't need to eat three meals a day or 3 or 4 meals a day. Like you can have like two kind of big meals a day, or you can have like one really big meal throughout the day, and then you're pretty good. Like you're just chilling, and I found that has worked pretty well for me in terms of getting more in shape and seeing progress in my athletic endeavors and whatnot. So yeah, I mean you don't have to try it, but that's what how I'm eating to get fitter, and it's what I would recommend you start with. And if you're going to experiment and whatnot, I just try it out. Start cutting out the carbs, start cutting out the weird like whack plants. If you still like some, like okay, cool. And also just try like maybe restricting your eating window instead of having like 3 meals consistently throughout the day. Maybe you shorten that eating window to like some like close to midday, and that's all you have. Like that's literally just that's it. Maybe yeah, just like try that out. But yeah, that's how I'm eating to get fitter, and I would encourage you to experiment with the things that I have personally done, because I have seen lots of benefits from them in terms of getting a little bit more in shape, my fitness, quality of life, energy. There's I've experienced a lot of like good things from those three areas of how I'm eating to get fitter. And so I would just encourage you to try it out as well. You don't have to do it 100%, like I was saying, but just experiment and see what works for you. You know, like I said, lower the eating window. Maybe try fasting for a little bit. Maybe try low carb, no carb, like a keto sort of diet approach. Maybe try just eating absolutely no carbs whatsoever with carnivore and just eating like just meat and eggs or whatever. Like maybe even try something crazy like the lion diet where you just eat red meat basically. I tried that for a little bit. It was a little bit kind of like meh. You know, I didn't experience that many benefits, and I still wanted to eat eggs, and so I was like, I'm gonna eat eggs. So, and pork and whatnot. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have some pork, eggs, chicken, beef, that sort of thing. And that's where I've kind of landed with carnivore. I'm not ultra extreme on the elimination side of things, at least for carnivore, anyways. I mean, carnivore in of itself is kind of an extreme elimination diet, to be honest. But yeah, that's how I'm eating to get fitter. Just try and experiment with things, you know, and just see what works for you. That's honestly the biggest piece of advice that I could give. And just be healthy. Just keep training. Keep drinking water. Keep sleeping right. All of those other things are gonna be a huge impact on your fitness as well. It's like a lot of people will say like, oh, this diet is gonna make you this thing and that thing and that thing. But diet isn't really a silver bullet, in my opinion. I think it's one of many things and kind of like an arsenal of tools and things that you can do that will lead you to a better life. And so yeah, I say just try it out and just make sure everything else is locked in as well. So yeah, if you like what I'm saying and you want to support me, please go subscribe. Pretty please. Begging for subscribers. just just go subscribe and share the video and do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.